So close the glass loop is agnostic when it comes to collection systems. Okay, close the glass loop does not have a stated preferred collection model. What close the glass loop does advocate for is separate collection, but close the glass loop is well aware that there are lots of various local contexts that require local answers, and so there will never be, as far as I know, a kind of position at the level of close the glass loop that would say this collection system is better than this one and what have you. So we're agnostic when it comes to collection systems. What we do try and do is to make sure that whatever collection system is there, is available, we try and work as much as possible with it to get to the targets that we have at our level, which is 90% glass collection for recycling. So this is the reality that we work with, and in Romania, that reality moving forward is a reality where deposit return systems will become increasingly a major source of material for recycling. In this session, we're going to start going into precisely these more operational aspects about how are we going to go about collecting all glass packaging in Romania. I would like to start by showing you a visual. This visual comes from a study that we made in Close the Glass Loop, and this will become an annual study looking at the performance of packaging glass recycling in Europe. We make a survey of all the glass cullet recycling facilities across Europe, asking them, where do you get your tonnages, where do you get your input materials from? And also asking them then, where do the output materials go? So this is a voluntary survey. We don't peer review it. We don't sort of cross-check and cross-examine. But I think it does give a very interesting flavor of how is the closed loop built on European level, but also with a very strong national dimension. Could we please show the collection visual so that people get a sense? We have a very specific visual on Romania coming obviously from this survey. And I think it just gives you a picture of where are the materials coming from. What we will see in a second is that Romania currently has a picture that shows that a lot of the materials are coming from municipal waste management, so national municipal waste collectors. 63%, and interestingly, 25% of the tonnages coming into glass cullet recycling facilities are coming from direct acquisition from consumers. And this is data from 2019. Now, I apologize because we also measure the input tonnage that we're looking at compared to what is actually available collected for recycling in the country. So this data, let's say it's not that representative of the whole Romanian picture because we only cover 22% of the material that was collected for recycling. But I think it does give an interesting view. I think especially this 25%. This 25% means that there is a separate channel outside of municipal waste management where glass cullet recycling facilities are just trying to access material. And they're ready to do that in a very kind of informal basis with consumers, which could be, for instance, going to high-rise blocks and trying to have ways of accessing material outside of the municipal system. Now, the other interesting aspect of this graphic is that this is 2019, and we will be doing this annually. If what we hear is going to come true, it means that in a few years' time, when we do this survey, as of the year 2024 in terms of data, so what we will get in 2026 as Close the Glass Loop, because we'll have probably a 2-year delay, is that more and more of the material will be coming from the deposit return system, currently not existing in Romania for 2019. So this picture will be changing. And the question is, how are we going to collect all the material with the existing systems, given that in 2019 there was clearly such a huge share from an informal segment? This will naturally probably go to deposit. So I just wanted to show you that because that's also something that we do at Close the Glass Loop, is that we try and put forward information, data that can hopefully also help to shape actions locally. And wherever you will need support as you build your action plan, we will be, we will stand ready to do that, okay? It's a study that you can find on the Close the Glass Loop website. It's all public, and I'll be referring to a few of these visuals during the day, okay? So that's just to give you a picture, and now we will therefore be looking more closely at the National Municipal Waste Collection System. And we'll start with a presentation from the municipality of Bucharest. We have Roxana Suica, who's with us. Shuika? Shunika.
Roxana don't worry, Shunika. I'm used to it.
Okay. Sorry, so, the closed loop is highly dependent on municipal waste management. So we're really, really curious to hear how in Bucharest you get organized to try and collect as much glass packaging as you can. So please, Roxana, over to you.
Thank you so much. If I were to answer your question, how is Bucharest dealing with this issue, it would be a very uncomfortable response. Thank God you knew me from before, so we haven't met just here representing the municipality. But I'm going to give you a very honest overview over what happens in Bucharest and what it actually happened some years ago. So my first slide is, could you please? It's a very nice slide anyway. It talks about the fact that we have 6 districts in Bucharest. And 6 districts, you see there that we have a huge difference in terms of square meters. We have over 240 kilometers, square kilometers of Bucharest. And what is more important is that we have 7 decision makers. We have 7 mayors. And for more than 15 years, the mayors of the districts were those in charge with financing and also deciding upon how collection is implemented for all kinds of waste. The municipality of Bucharest only had the role of coordination, but it's quite difficult to coordinate something where you don't actually have the means to control it when you are not paying. So keep in mind that we have this as a first struggle. Then in the next slide, we are looking over the number of inhabitants, and of course, as any municipality, we do have an official and an unofficial number, but for our calculation, we have used the unofficial, which is roughly 1,800,000 people. Could you please turn to the next slide? Okay, thank you. The unofficial is almost double. But what we see here is that we have different footage in terms of dimension of a district and different number of inhabitants. And underneath the population and how is that divided between districts, you see in very, very small numbers, but it's publicly available. I've got it from hotnews.ro. The cost, the estimated budget of the districts that they are paying for sanitation. Please keep in mind that sanitation is not only waste management, it's also about dealing with the snow and also dealing with the street cleaning by washing it and so on. If you would see there, but you can't because it's really small, but I can tell you that we have districts that are planning to pay between 34 million euro per year up to 40,000 million euro per year. But it's just the budget. It's a big difference between what they are budgeting and what they are actually paying, because they are paying the sanitation company based on their performance or on their lack of performance, let's put it. In total, we have these budgets that are all allocated for Bucharest. And the experience shows us that no really important investments were done in Bucharest in terms of infrastructure for collection. We only see that happening now because this year we have at least 2 districts that are accessing European funds. And just to give you a very clear example with numbers, not picking best in class, but because I have the numbers, District 2, they are investing 23,000 million. Is it 1,000? 23, yes. K millions in euro in infrastructure, and they are going to place over 130,000 containers. This is only happening this year. Before these investments, we were talking about garbage, and for last years we were talking about 2 waste streams, wet and non-wet. Good. Could we please move to the next? Okay, so for the municipality, for me, when talking about collection and data, we actually are facing two streams. On the one hand, we have the municipal waste that is collected by sanitation companies, and on the other hand, we see the mostly packaging that has been collected for many years by EPR schemes. So, and I do remember many years ago when I started working in recycling, in collection, whatever, in WEEE, that we were meeting waste generators and asking them to put separately lamps, and their response was, I don't even have a solution for cardboard. You are telling me that you are going to collect lamps? We are still there, but while the sanitation did not invest in sanitation and municipalities, did not invest in infrastructure for separate collection, let's call it business-to-business sectors, those that were having a market for the packaging, the collectors, the EPR schemes, they have invested, they have developed, they are the ones actually collecting from the market the packaging waste. And what somehow is left in the municipal waste containers, not completely, but I do remember someone years ago saying, from a sanitation company, saying, I only get the bananas leftovers in the municipal collection system. But yes, that happened because a parallel system, more efficient, more with investments. Could you please move to the next slide? Thank you. This private sector was fueled by clear targets imposed on producers, and so they were forced to achieve the targets and also to provide the funding, and they did so through the EPR schemes. Now they do have access, and this of course shifts toward Returo because on how the system has recently developed, but they've educated the B2B sector to collect separately, to see value in the packaging, and not to give it to the municipal collection stream, because from there they knew for sure that they won't get the targets done. I'm talking about the producers, and the waste generators knew for sure that this waste will go to landfill. Please, next slide. So, for Bucharest, when we are talking about municipal waste, these are the data for last year, where we have the very, let's say, specific scenario due to some legislation changes, whatever. Hardly any waste was treated. Basically, every waste that was generated in Bucharest was landfilled. And you see in the slide on your left hand side you see the tons per district, but please remember and compare them, and you will see that district number I should have brought my glasses. Okay, I don't wear them. District number 4. Has landfilled a lot of waste, while he is one of the smallest districts in terms of population. So there is a big question about the data they are filling in. I'm just sharing them with them and ask you to look at them and to analyze, taking into consideration all these things. The number of population that should be somehow related to the quantities per person. They are not. And you see on the last graphic, the one that has a red line, that's the average, waste that is generated by an inhabitant of Bucharest. But you see big differences between districts. The average is 422 kilos per inhabitant. Meanwhile, we see big differences in quantities by different districts, and we can assume that it's a matter of data and what we put in, what the districts put in, and what the sanitation companies declare as municipal waste. Going to the next slide. You'll see here a split in categories. Of course, the largest, which is like 67%, is mixed waste. We are talking about 490,000 tons. This is mixed. And other categories are mentioned there. Let's say that the second largest pile is street cleaning residues. What do they contain? Maybe they do contain some other kind of waste than leaves and dust. Probably they do. I think the third largest is the residual waste, and then we are talking about mixed construction and demolition. In total, we see 725,000 tons that were landfilled from municipality of Bucharest last year. Another important aspect that we need to keep in mind is that only last year, actually, we've got all the districts and the general mayor sitting at one table and deciding that it's actually the last chance to do something about waste management in Bucharest. So at this point, we have an agreement. Of course, let's forget about elections, because if we go into the elections, I'm really worried about future agreements. But at this point, we have the 6 districts talking about the fact that the way forward is implementing separate collection and not wet and not just wet and non-wet. They haven't reached an agreement like, okay, all districts will do the same, but we see at least three districts really investing into that. And we have an agreement that was and is well taken care of by the association, by ADI in Bucharest, because starting this year, all waste, in theory, in practice we are not there yet, but in theory, is going to be treated. So when talking about what kind of waste can we expect, what kind of, where do we expect glass to come from, I think we should look at the mixed waste and also the street cleaning. We are talking about the big pile of the municipal waste. And from there, maybe we can see some good results in terms of packaging waste that can be extracted. And reaching to my last slide, again, a very small slide. Some other data, so we've seen the big picture, but when looking into glass, I'm not sharing here the district because it's irrelevant. I've just named them A, B, C, D, E, F, and they are not in the correct order, so don't bother trying to understand. And I did that because there is a specific situation where one district does not report anything to the municipality. They simply just don't send the data. But anyhow, these are the data that comes from 5 districts of Bucharest in terms of separate collected packaging glass. These are the tons that are reported by the sanitation companies. And we are talking about 2,757 tons. This is what comes as packaging glass from the sanitation companies in Bucharest. And we have some other 1,500 tons coming from the sorting process. So altogether, what the municipality, in theory, is declaring as glass collected separately, it's less than 500 tons. 5,000 tons glass last year. One last remark I would like to make is that I was looking over the, maybe not a remark, a question mark. I was looking over the publicly available data of the OIREPS for 2022. This is the year where I could find data for all the CRSOs. And from my calculation, the put on the market of glass was roughly over 400,000 tons. That was the put on the market. If we are considering that 65%, the target was achieved for this number, we are saying that through the, let's put it, business-to-business system, there were over 267,000 tons, these mathematic numbers. You know, the mayor is a mathematician, so I don't need to be one. These were the glass quantities that were recycled according to the data that we see from the OIREPS. Then I'm making some assumptions. We know as a general number that roughly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, 30% of the put on the market of the packaging is placed in Bucharest, roughly. And if this 30%, for this 30%, the target was achieved through the CRSOs, to the OIREPS, then we have over 80,000 tons of packaging glass that is already extracted, mainly from B2B, for sure, not from citizens. But these quantities are already collected and hopefully recycled from Bucharest. Maybe it's not 80, maybe it's 70, maybe it's 60. But for sure, the numbers that we are comparing, and I don't want to say efficient, but the number we are comparing is 5,000 compared to 60,000. And yes, that is mainly due to the fact that the investments were not done in due time, and they are not there at this moment either, at the level we all need them. But also, let's just consider that business was, as always is, a better player, more performant, and they already did that, and they overstepped the municipality, doing their job, absolutely doing their job. But when trying to answer how much packing waste can we extract from the municipal waste, I remember that line, we only get to the bananas, and just think about it. That would be all.
Thank you, Roxana. I think it's always very challenging when we're talking about waste management and we meet the realities of governance of public space, which is a highly competitive space and governed by competing and conflicting interests. And that's just a reality that one has to deal with. And waste management is only a small share of that. And I note in particular what you're talking about in relation to the value of the materials and the waste management system. And that will be also challenged moving forwards with the introduction of the deposit return system, which will further create a distortion of value between the materials going into that system and the remaining materials that will be in the general municipal waste stream. And how do we combine that perceived lower value of materials in the municipal waste stream with investments in that stream to continue to collect all the materials that are outside of the deposit system? So this is actually where extended producer responsibility, I assume, continues to play a role beyond the deposit return system. And this is where Sorin Dumitru comes in, Deputy General Manager at Ekorom Ambalaye. Give us a sense of the picture for you as extended producer responsibility scheme, one among many in Romania, but nevertheless, you're going to be coexisting with the deposit return system. Tell us how you're going to support collecting all glass packaging in Romania.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, for the kind introduction. It was 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, almost in December 2019, that I first had the privilege of being invited by the Close the Glass Loop community and EXPRA, whom we're a member of, to participate in the first debate, which eventually conducted to the official platform being implemented. So I'm honored that 5 years later we are all here today. Hopefully my presentation will include enough elements to be meaningful. As you said, we are just one of the 16 EPR schemes, or producer responsibility organizations, currently acting on the market. So I chose to share with you some general figures of the market. But first, just a few words about Ekorom Ambalaje, the first producer responsibility organization that was licensed way back in 2004 for the management of packaging and packaging waste. However, 20 years later, we are now a very big market and a fierce competition, no doubt about that. In 2008, we have become members of the Packaging Recovery Organizations Europe that are basically sub-licensing the Green Dot trademark to national members for the respective countries. In 2013, we have become a founding member of EXPRA, the Extended Producer Responsibility Alliance, and this is the connection of my being here today on behalf of Ekorom. In 2020, we have become members of the National Romania Association of EPR schemes for packaging and packaging waste management. And I'm also saluting my colleagues, some of them present here. And last but not least important, most recently, we have become members of the Romanian Coalition for Circular Economy, to whom I would like to extend our gratitude for kindly inviting us today in this European conference. Ekorom has had a significant contribution since 2004 to initiating the separate collection system for packaging waste management in Romania. Just general figures, some more than 18,500 containers in different volumes and approximately 5.5 million bags were deployed at national level by signing agreements with more than 750 authorities and delegated municipal operators. But this is to point out that basically it was not meant for neither for Ekorom nor for the other PROs at that time to actually substitute the role the municipality had in establishing a comprehensive separate collection system, which, as we have heard today, and I'm ready to testify as well, it is still far from being solved. Obviously, in this capacity, we implemented, as other colleagues have done also, or finance multiple local, regional, and national information, education, and awareness campaigns, because obviously the consumer is and should be in the center of our interest, as its response is actually will ensure the success of our endeavors. In a nutshell, about EXPRA, and hopefully you all understand again why my presence being here. Last year we celebrated 10 years of existence. There are more than 33 members and partners at international level, all industry-owned and all non-profit organizations. We have some of our members have at least 30 years of experience in the waste management field. We are covering a population of approximately 240 million people with services regarding collection, sorting, and recycling. So, in a nutshell, this is what EXPRA is all about. In a recent exercise that to determine its vision and mission for the next 10 or 20 years, we have determined that we are going to enabling sustainable packaging via optimum EPR through 3 major pillars: to act as a knowledge exchange hub for our sector, sustainability advocate for our ecosystem, and provide joint EPR services for our members. Our strengths rely, obviously, in representing more than 30 countries, representing more than 30 countries worldwide, having collective industry expertise, which we are willing to share with everybody, and that's, I think, it's very notable. And also important that only non-profit packaging EPR organizations are member of EXPRA. The connection with the closed glass loop is as follows. Among many external activities that EXPRA is currently implementing, being part of various and multiple working groups, platforms, projects, EXPRA is also a founding member and a board member of Close the Glass Loop initiative, and this is how I first got to meet the community way back 5 years, and I'm again very grateful and honored to meeting with you here in Bucharest. EXPRA is committed to continuing its contribution at European level, and then via Ecorom Ambalaje in Romania to developing and implemented an action plan for Close the Glass Loop program. EPR, I think it's already a well-known factor that extended producer responsibility has played and will play continuously a major role in ensuring a circular economy. EPR schemes, or producer responsibility organizations, play a pivotal role in this circle with so many important stakeholders, from obviously starting with the producers or importers, the bottlers, the fillers, the ones who are actually financing the system, communicating with consumer, as I said, they played a major role in ensuring its success, concluding contracts with local authorities and their delegated operators, but equally with the other side of the operators, the private operators that you have been just recently mentioned, and also Roxana has done, that have had and still will have quite an important contribution. The phenomena that you explained, the acquisition from the population, but we should have in mind that that also comes from an incentive-based system. It's all about the money, it's an incentive system. And finally, obviously, signing contracts with recycling installations. All in all, it's important to know that in our vision, the extended producer responsibility should not be just a financial responsibility, but an operational one. Next slide, thank you. Coming back and focusing now towards Romania, I've put here together just some general data that obviously are well known, both from Romanian colleagues, but also from European members. I think it has already been reported that Romania is still lagging behind many European member states when it comes to recycling of municipal packaging waste, while maybe a paradox or not, it has waste generated per person way less than the European average. A few milestones in the national packaging and packaging waste legislation I consider to be important. Obviously, my Romanian colleagues are already aware of all the ups and downs of this particular legislation, but we strongly consider that this is an important part of our work. And just to navigate through the years, in 2005, we had the transposition of the packaging waste directive, the obliged industry being responsible to ensuring the separate collection and recycling of packaging waste. In 2006, we had a new regulation for sanitation of municipalities as a public service. Municipalities and operators were obliged to organize the municipal waste management and ensure the separate collection of recyclables. In 2011, the transposition of the Waste Framework Directive, setting requirements for municipality to reach 50% recycling by 2020, and we're far from being there, although we are many years afterwards. In 2015, a major breakthrough in our line of work in packaging and packaging waste management, we had a new regulation that basically defined the roles and responsibility throughout the value chain, meaning the obliged industry, the producer responsibility organizations, or EPR schemes as we call them as well, local authorities and packaging waste operators. In 2016, as Alain mentioned before, things have actually changed dramatically, and there was a transfer of responsibility from the obliged industry to the EPR schemes. PROs being responsible to fulfill the recycling and recovery targets or pay the penalty if not achieving these targets in the amount of approximately 450 euro per ton. 2018, another, let's say, breakthrough, another change in our regulation, empowering local authorities for an effective municipal waste management. PROs had to contract with local authorities or association of municipalities as opposed to working directly with municipal operators, as it happened until then. And we're still having a bit of a trouble, to put it mildly, after so many years already in trying to really establish a good relationship with our counterpart being the municipalities. In 2019, responsibilities and penalties extended throughout the chain. Waste operators become contributors to the environmental fund, and they also had to pay the same penalty in case of false declarations. In 2021, the transposition of the most recent changes of the Waste Framework Directive, the Packaging Waste Directive, and more importantly, the Single-Use Plastic Directive, but also at national level was the year to set up the legal framework for the DRS system for non-reusable beverage packaging, which Mrs. Webb has already talked about. And getting closer to today, in 2022, the responsibility shifted back to the obliged industry, to the producers. Collectors were no longer considered contributors to the environmental fund. Instead, they had to set up a distinct guarantee for their declarations, for their operations, in favor of the environmental fund. And finally, last year, obviously November 30th, a day that will be remembered, the implementation of the deposit return system for beverage packaging, and a slight change in the definition of this bank guarantee. All in all, you can see there has been a lot of going up and down with the legislation. At least during the past 10 years, actually, there was never a dull moment in our line of work. But we also learned to work with that and adapt ourselves to the new environment. Now, in terms of some general figures again, which are more, hopefully they're more important and more meaningful. In terms of the market, I would like to start by saying that 10 years ago when I joined Ecorom Embalaje, the national market was approximately 1 million tons of packaging put on the market. 5 years later, 2019, it has basically doubled its size. Since then, there is, as you can see, a slight increase in packaging put on the market, with the exception of last year that obviously we are observing a contraction. No doubt because on the one hand, producers have implemented measures in order to prevent the quantities of packaging, to prevent the packaging that becomes waste. On the other hand, obviously, there was also, I think, to be considered a decrease in the purchasing power of the consumers, thus this contraction as well. For further references, obviously, you can see there, I'm not sure whether you can all see all the figures, but there are some figures for all the materials, but actually we will be talking more about glass. In terms of the total packaging waste recycling rate, somehow the trend, obviously, it's similar. We had to observe the recycling rates and the increase in recycling rates that we, as a nation, have decided to gradually increase them until 2025. So obviously, if you look at these figures, there are, we have successfully reached the targets for the global targets at least, but also in most cases the material-specific targets for each material. And now focusing even more on glass packaging put on the market, the figures that I have, and I have to say that this is, this data is being compiled from various official sources that I have received and requested and received over the years, but in addition, other official sources, public statements, media articles, and also internal projections of market, at least for last year. As I think Roxana already pointed out, 2023, the total glass packaging put on the market, 43,000 tons put on the market, while there was a recycling rate of 67.71%, more or less 300,000 tons being declared as being recycled, most of which being declared by the EPR schemes, and much less as a result of the individual actions that producers choose to take for individual compliance. As we've heard before, obviously, and I know there's going to be a discussion around these figures, there are only less than 100,000 tons that more or less have been declared by the three major cullet processors in Romania. We know that there are some approximately 60,000 tons that have been sent to other countries, export, and there are reasons for doing that. And obviously the remaining have been actually mobilized towards alternative recycling, which is not a closed loop, which is an open loop, obviously, in other type of application, bricks or handcrafted glass packaging or other type of materials. As far as we are concerned, as an EPR organization, a producer responsive organization, the main challenges in glass collection and recycling are, on the one hand, the lack of a coherent and comprehensive system throughout the country for the separate collection of packaging waste in general and glass packaging in particular. As I said before, and other co-speakers have already pointed out, we do not have a universal, a general separate collection system in the proximity of each consumer. Nearly half of the Romanian population lives in rural areas, not all being easily accessible, and I would also add where glass packaging is traditionally used for preserving food. Thus, it does not actually become waste. This scarce separate collection infrastructure and scavenging, including from landfills, have determined the low-quality glass packaging waste being delivered with significant impurities, which basically also explain that they have been directed to alternative means of recycling that I mentioned earlier, the open loop. The uneven distribution of recycling installations for cullet processing throughout the country, thus making transportation expensive and facilitating the export as an alternative solution. And finally, but not less important, generally speaking, as I hopefully was able to share with you, we have had our share of problems with the legislation back and forth in this country. More recently, on the one hand, because the entire legal framework is not really coherent and correlated with each other. More recently, there have been some recent changes in the national legislation in the last 2 years, transposing the new calculation point for recycling, which has become contradictory in terms that has allowed for different interpretations and are and will be preventing operational predictability for EPR schemes to achieving the legal recycling recovery targets for packaging waste with an impact on collection. And finally, because we have to move forward, in our vision, on the one hand, the integrated waste management systems that are being implemented at county level, they have to be adapted in terms of the separate collection infrastructure and cost, especially in the post-DRS implementation. We know, personally I would be very interested to actually access a public source, but we know that more or less 25%, maybe to 30% of the national market has shifted or will shift gradually from the EPR schemes to the DRS system. That will have a significant impact on collection. There is some infrastructure that is available. Maybe for now it has been mobilized in urban areas, in urban centers, but now there will be more of it available because of the interaction and intervention of the DRS. But definitely these systems have to be revisited to coordinate the municipal packaging waste management at national level through a clearinghouse type of mechanism implemented by the EPR industry, owned and independent, aiming for 3 major objectives. 1, to increase the quantity and quality of the separately collected packaging waste in general, glass in particular. 2, to ensure the implementation of the EPR financial obligations at national level. And 3, to ensure sustained economic efficiency and transparency throughout the process. Also, in our opinion, there is a need to facilitate a standard reporting of packaging put on the market based on its use or based on the waste stream in which it ends up, being either municipal or commercial, because accurate reporting of the packaging waste generated ensures the appropriate setup of the separate collection infrastructure and calculation of operational costs. And also, because the distinct reporting there should be a distinct reporting based on simple, clear, and realistic criteria agreed by and mandatory to the entire obliged industry to ensure legal compliance. Finally, but not less important, to enhance the central role of consumers in the separate collection of packaging waste in general and glass in particular through a pay-as-you-throw mechanism that it has been regulated, but it has not been yet implemented at national scale, again, based on incentive similar to some extent to the incentive that the DRS is actually facilitating, and obviously education and awareness campaigns. Thank you very much. And I would also like to give credit to my colleague, Monica, who has helped make this presentation hopefully more enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sorin. Maybe just one word on the program. So I propose that we spend a good 20-25 minutes, so we can take up until 1 p.m. before we have the lunch break, and then maybe I'll give you, until 2:15 to reconvene, okay? Because I think it's important that we just discuss a few points on the presentations that have been made. I'd like to start with something a little bit cynical, if you don't mind. So we saw 450,000 tons placed on the market for glass, right? Sorin, you just mentioned that you estimate that 30 or 35% of that would be covered by a deposit return system now. But I feel that might be actually quite low. My feeling is that it would be much higher because there are a lot of beverages. I mean, glass packaging will be, I imagine, a lot going towards beverages. So my cynical question is, if we forget about the packaging that is not beverage when it comes to glass, okay, if we just think beverage, would we be able to achieve 90% glass collection for recycling based only on the material that will be covered by the deposit return system? That's just a quick cynical question.
First of all, if I may, just not a correction, but just to make sure that I was clearly understood, I mentioned that maybe 25 to 30% of the entire packaging market is going, not glass, is going to shift towards the DRS. From what I was able to find out, okay, glass is probably more or less around 300,000 of the 440,000 currently put on the market. So it's 25, 30% national market.
Which counts for 85 to 90% from total glass.
Exactly.
Okay, so cynically speaking, are we saying that we could drop all the glass packaging that is not beverages and we would still reach our targets?
No, because the rest of the glass should be dealt through PROs. And PROs cannot use the glass from DRS. So it will be a very hard job for PROs to collect non-DRS glass and to make up 65% target which is currently in place. Not an easy job.
So this becomes a very challenging question in my mind, because we need to assume that the DRS will work on the beverage part of the packaging because of the system that it will create, the financial incentive that people will have to bring back the containers. When it comes to the rest of that material, which is going into food, cosmetics, perfumery, and other non-beverage applications, how are we going to create an investment system that will, make it work, that we will be able to collect that material? And I'm really opening this question to the floor, actually. I'd be curious to hear views on this, to be honest, because this challenge is not so much a question of whether or not we get material back into the closed loop, but it's also linked to whether that material ends up. Where does it actually end up? Does it necessarily then end up in landfill? I mean, is that the future for that material? And how can we prevent that from happening? Because having zero landfill or getting as close as possible to zero landfill should also be a target. So, Roxana, I mean, you pointed out this challenge that you have on creating value out of your municipal waste system. What kind of investments would you be expecting in this area to relieve you from having municipal waste, like real waste in the end?
In order to get the value out of the municipal waste, you need separate collection. So all the investments that we need to do, and we should have done it years ago, is collect separately at source. And I was mentioning some projects happening now in Bucharest, and just to have an overview over how large the investment should be, please keep in mind that one district has estimated that needs over 130,000 containers. Divide this into 5 fractions, and then you will see how many containers has the local authority estimated as needed for glass collection. So those are basically the first investments that need to be done. Then municipality and actually the district mayors, they need to invest in themselves in order to understand that they need to cover these costs for transport, separate transport, for treatment, and these are costs that they were only faced this year for treatment, and now they realize that they are not only paying 200 lei per ton for landfilling and 160 lei for the contribution to the circular economy. They need to pay some extra 450 lei per ton for treatment. In order to cover this cost, they need to go to the inhabitants and announce them that actually the cost of waste management has doubled. So they need to invest into communicating this and accepting that this is something that needs to be done. I guess these are the main challenges for this year and for the next year, because this year this treatment contract only starts until all the, I'm actually hoping that it's going to be in place this year as well. But with election, they will find some funding within the municipality, they will cover the cost. But next year, when they are looking at real numbers that they need to cover from somewhere, they need to go and double the fee for population. And that is the challenge. Will all the district mayor do so? Or would they continue to do as they are doing now? Collection, landfilling, whatever, and not adding these mandatory processes to the waste stream.
And I look around, so please chip in if you want to add a comment or raise a question. The other challenge that we see is the difference between reported figures and real tonnages actually being recycled, something like that. And maybe that also explains why in our survey graphic, the input materials that we're able to cover in our survey is only 22% of what is declared collected for recycling. Maybe that's because actually there is a difference between real tons and reported tons. I don't know. But obviously we also have a problem there, because if reported tons basically cover the compliance for the targets, whereas actually in terms of real tons, there is not a real recycling activity or business, there's also an issue there. Maybe we can also raise a little bit more awareness on real tons, actually. Is that also something that could help to create investments? Because if we're complying with targets, we don't have a massive incentive to invest more. But if we actually demonstrate that we're in reality not complying with targets, maybe we can create more investment. Is that a pathway that could be explored? I don't know if anyone wants to chip in on that. Yes, please.
Well, I think for us and also for Brussels, important is the reporting. We have perfect reporting. And if you look here with a 68% almost of glass recycling, we are there. I mean, we are exceeding the European target of collection and recycling. What is behind it's all in our practice or in any other state member practice. We don't have a level practice. We don't have we have just the directives. And the way we are measuring, it's very different. We are better than Portugal, for example. But here, a Portuguese producer of glass is suffering not having cullet. Cullet are very scarce in Romania. And the question will be later on, I mean, is all this going into circularity, or we just like to be happy having a very nice paperwork? And one comment from the municipality, really I appreciate very much what Roxana was, you know, how sincere was in putting all this, not easy to come and present this. Bucharest, which is what she was mentioning, 30%, is about 30% of all packaging from the municipal waste, all packaging put on the market is in Bucharest. 30%, which means 150,000 tons of glass packaging was put on Bucharest market, not on Romania market, but on Bucharest market. And municipality was collecting with the 6 municipalities here, 2,000 tons. I mean, what is the percentage? Of course, the rest might be business to business, but this all goes in the in the reporting, and we really need there to put something, I don't know, digitalization or more, paying more attention. That's why this was the push for DRS, because Romanian authorities, they want to help municipalities, saying you are not able to do it, okay, we industry will assume it and will do it. Let's see. Yeah, the story goes on.
I mean, just to mention, I mean, data is not a Romanian problem. I don't think there's any country that can honestly stand up and say, yeah, we've got our traceability fully on board, even for glass or whatever, you know. I don't think there's a single country that doesn't have some issues with data and reporting. You talk about this business aspect. Could we just show a visual? Because there's another study that we made at the level of Close the Glass Loop, which was looking at the HoReCa sector, particularly. The HoReCa sector, because we often focus on glass packaging and consumers and households and municipal waste, but it's true that we don't always think in terms of the businesses that are using glass packaging. So if we could just show the visual of HoReCa, please, Christina, so that we can just give a sense. What we estimated at the level of Close the Glass Loop is that pretty much 20% of the glass packaging placed on the market in Europe is placed via the HoReCa channel. So the HoReCa channel weighs about 1/5 of the total amount of glass being placed on the market, which means that it's about 1/5 of the impact when it comes to collection. So that's still sizable. And in our HoReCa study, we also had a view towards each country. And we were able to kind of develop a bit of a scatter plot where we identified priority countries where the HoReCa channel would be particularly important and particularly relevant in order to meet higher glass collection for recycling targets. Now, what you will see here is the upside down figures for Romania on HoReCa. So that's an interesting challenge for me. But basically, there's one metric that Romania stands out for. It's the tonnage per establishment, okay? Now, I don't know why. Is it because in Romania you have big HoReCa establishments or you have very few HoReCa establishments? But basically what we see is that on average, we would estimate that there are 2.82 tons of glass packaging, one way, for recycling, placed in HoReCa establishments. So that HoReCa establishments consume on average 2.82 tons per year, which is actually one of the highest figures that we have per establishment across Europe. And that's why we think it could be a priority area for Romania. I'd be really keen to have your comments on that.
This is what I was thinking about, is the fact that these numbers, those from HoReCa, for example, they don't get to the municipalities reporting in any way. We don't get these numbers. They are already taken out of the municipal waste stream. They are already dealt with. So the numbers we are sharing about municipal waste is the ones that we get from the sanitation companies. The sanitation companies do not get the waste, the products, the glass bottles from HoReCa, because HoReCa has developed their parallel system where they know for sure that this packaging goes to treatment, to the correct treatment, and also they are contributing to achieving the targets as producers. So these numbers should, it's a question, should be added up to the numbers of the municipality and considered as achieved target, because at this moment, for Bucharest, we are not doing it. When we're talking about recycling glass, the figures that we are using is just the roughly 5,000 tons from the sanitation company and what comes out of sorting. Everything else is EPRs or whoever.
Because the average EU tonnage placed on the market is a little bit less than 20. I think it's around 17, if my memory serves me right. Here in Romania, you're on 23%. So 23%, and this is 2019 data, okay? you see that you're number 2 in EU plus UK on tons per establishment. Okay, you're second on the list, so that's that's an important figure, and you're also 7th in terms of total tons in HoReCa, okay, of glass packaging. So it is an important sector. One actually basic question, moving forwards, is the HoReCa sector part of the deposit return system? And how does that work then for the HoReCa operators? Because this is really key.
To pick on this question, the very short answer to your question, also this time, is yes, the HoReCa has been included into the DRS system. It comes with a particularity because as part of the DRS system, HoReCa does not accept empty containers from outside of its premises, so it is just obliged to collect what is being generated within its premises. And then for the rest, it follows the same set of rules where the system administrator has the mandatory obligation to set up in place transportation that will pick up the empties from HoReCa, just as it does for the retailers, whether big or small. That is one of the obligation that falls with the system operator. And then as part of the system, the HoReCa entities also are entitled to receive the deposits that they are paying to their distributors, so that it closes the loop with regards to the deposit. And there is a fee that covers their activity in terms of handling the packaging up until the moment when Returo, the system administrator, is collecting them. And I believe it's important, especially when it comes to the glass, just because you also showed this stat about the amount of glass, of waste glass that is being generated in HoReCa, then that is why it's important that they have been included into the DRS system, because otherwise having the glass as part of the system but not having the main channel of handling this packaging included would have made it quite difficult for the system to meet the targets of collection. And maybe at the same time also looking into a, well, quite far away future for the time being, but still an option that we do not exclude from the table, because we have a reusable system for glass in HoReCa. Now coming back to the particularities of the brewing sector, those reusable bottles that are in circulation are actually handled through the traditional trade and HoReCa, because that's how producers are able to recover their empties and then bring them back into the circulation. So having the HoReCa part of the DRS also makes it possible that in the future, if there is an economically viable option for that, the reusable glass is equally included into the system.
So operationally speaking, it means that although these packaging are part of the deposit system, it doesn't mean that they necessarily then go into a machine. I mean, all that happens is that there is a dedicated collection system of unbroken bottles for recycling, or is there an expectation that HoReCa establishments would somehow need to store material for a while, and therefore they might need to also kind of do you have any ideas? Because obviously there's a logistical connection here that, and also a speed of collection. In HoReCa are like mega households. They consume a lot every day. So will there be a kind of a daily collection system for HoReCa systems? Is that something that you're thinking about?
So in terms of breaking the glass, it doesn't happen in HoReCa. They are, in that sense, assimilated more to the manual collection, because manual collection equally does not compact the packaging, and neither does it break the glass. But it does revolve around the idea of really putting in place a mechanism of transportation that allows the pickups to happen in a frequent manner, so as not to obviously overload the activity of the HoReCa outlets. And in that sense, there is a system being put in place, currently being developed. Returo does this development while still up and running, because we had a very short time frame to make all the developments within the system. So this part, the logistic part, is currently being developed, and it will allow all the retailers, including the HoReCa, when they have their bags full, to fill in the details about their quantities in an application, and then an order for transportation will be issued immediately. There is a time frame, of course, included into the contract between the operator and the outlets to allow for this pickup to happen in an efficient basis. Indeed, because when it comes to HoReCa, there is volumes. Volumes are being generated, and glass obviously takes up a lot of volume, also because it's not broken. So this frequency will have to be handled in accordance to the number of containers being emptied for each outlet.
Okay, and just as a maybe a question to the waste management side. So I'm getting from Roxana that this is material that you don't really see today. So what is the current situation of material being collected at the level of HoReCa, and how much will it change? Because the incentive system, how will that affect a HoReCa operator? Because, you know, currently, if the material is not going through municipal waste management, I assume that there are already some kind of collection systems in place that have been set up for the HoReCa sector, and therefore how different will the system be moving forwards if there's already some kind of, I guess, privatized collection system? Is it just a change of the operator that will do the collection? Is that the only change? Because I don't see the financial incentive as making a huge difference here for a HoReCa operator if they already have a private collection system in place. Is there any comment on that? Yeah, please, go ahead.
I think that you have quite a correct hint on this. In principle, what means that? Pre-DRS, HoReCa was a very good stream that was able to collect glass. Why? Because as you correctly said, they received subsidies from private collectors for that material, especially for that material, not for PET, not for cans, but glass was very valuable type of package for them to gain some money, okay? This will not change now because they will work with Returo. But the game changer here is the value. They will receive from Returo a fee per piece, which if you count on total, it's way high, much high than previous gain. So HoReCa was and will be a very important channel for acquiring targets. Okay?
Yeah. I'm going very frequent to restaurants here in Romania. And I'm asking always, you know, the owner, what to do with the glass? What is happening? They didn't adapt yet, and I will tell you there are 3 or 4 situations they are facing. One, they don't know at all about the system, and they're still putting in a bin saying that the collection company is coming every Monday and they take it and that's fine. And I say, okay, all these are now coins of 10 euro cents. So are you throwing into the bin? They say that is what we are doing. What should we do? So it's a lack of information for sure there. Second, some of them seeing that they're putting in bags and waiting for the logistic, but they said it's not so much convenient, mostly for the small spaces. They're claiming it's not space to store it. And in this case, either they put in the trunk of the car, and when they do and they make a supply, if it's a small restaurant, they go and take it by themselves, and they just, like an individual, they start putting the each recipient into the RVM. And the third direction is there is this leakage to the social activity. Like they say, we don't care, for us, you know, anyway, we have our prices in HoReCa is much higher than the supermarket. So this 10 euro cents we will assume as a cost, and they just give like a bonus to the lady that is cleaning or someone at the restaurant. They say, okay, you make an additional income, you take always the bottle. So there are several aspects, but it's at the very beginning we are waiting to see a maturization of the system, and of course the reverse logistics should be the best that can happen in the HoReCa.
If I may, example, just quickly to add something as well with regards to this particular channel, and to also respond to Roxana's question earlier before. Because we have a very complex, let's call it like that, legislation framework, it was never a done deal whether HoReCa is a municipal or is an industrial commercial stream. If you ask each party, they will say, one party will say it's definitely municipal, 100%, another party will say no way, it's industrial commercial. On the one hand. On the second hand, indeed, it was a very strong collection channel that PROs have financed with, obviously, the support of the producers via those particular private collectors that actually found their way because apparently there was not enough interest from the municipal operators in collecting this type of waste. Or at least this is what some of the HoReCa have testified. Whether it's true or not, to be determined. Now, indeed, the game changer is the value, because there was a value put to this packaging that the private collectors would pay with being financed basically by producers via PROs. And now it's a game changer because of the value in the entire new mechanism in which they will have to enter as part of the DRS. And finally, you should also, I'm referring to our European guests today, we have a system in Romania, probably not many countries do. It's an online system for reporting traceability of packaging waste, which has been initiated and implemented by the Environmental Fund, which is an organization under the umbrella of the Ministry of Environment. We, the PROs, have just started to actually consider HoReCa a distinct channel within the industrial commercial umbrella. So for us, it was always industrial commercial, but if you ask other operators, would say no, it's definitely municipal. And there has been, not just for glass, an overlap always between the municipal delegated operators by municipalities and the private collectors who are trying to overlap with each other in both waste streams. Hopefully this will, at some point, be clarified. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, reactions? Yes, please. Briefly introduce yourself.
I'm Milan from a winery. We sell mostly to HoReCa, 80% I would say. And what happened with all the discussion and so on was simply HoReCa is adding costs. They buy at a fixed price. They have now the 10 euro cents. They add this cost and they don't care about further because they got the cost paid ×4 or ×3, depending on the commercial philosophy of the place. So after that, we work with 800 restaurants in the country, and we are part of the system. And we ask what is happening, because for us, we are ready to pay for a system that has recycling as a final goal. But if this is not happening, we are questioning why we pay for this system. And talking to our partners, as Mr. Damov said very correctly, either they don't know, or mostly they don't care, because they got their money back even more than they invested. And this is very interesting that HoReCa, and as you say, that the tons per location, I can follow. And the problem also with the Returo system is the space, if they have to keep it. For a week or two, you have to imagine an average restaurant sells 400 bottles of wine only. I'm only talking about wine. Where to keep this? You don't have this. And the simplest system would be to work with the distributors, because they buy the wines or any alcohol products from the distributor. They get daily deliveries. It would be the easiest system just to take it back to the distributors. But the system is taking that step completely out of the calculation. So, yeah.
This is not entirely true. regarding the backhaul. Returo is operating through backhaul system. So distributors will be able to take down the bottles from the shops and from Horeca locations and brought back to their location and then to Returo. So it's a stream that is available for them. Second, it's not true that Returo is coming there once or twice per month. They are obliged by law to take as often as necessary in order not to block the activity of the location. If it's necessary to go there daily, we'll go there daily. So there is no problem with space and with taking back. Now, what you said about the value is true. It's true that the value can be recovered through their increased sales price to the customers. But come on, everything which is on top of this, if they can make even more money, would you say that they will not be able to take also this money? If not them, as Mr. Davov said, maybe it's the cleaning lady that will make this money. Maybe we are speaking about huge, huge volume of money, because once is the deposit, second is the value of the tariff for the service. Yes? If we assume that money is not important, then indeed the system is done for nothing. But I may say that is not correct. Thank you.
In international key accounts, 50 bani are important because the average sales price of a bottle of wine is 15 lei. So it's a high percentage. In a restaurant, average sales point of a bottle of wine is 80 lei. So 50 bani become much, much less important. I'm not saying it's not important, it's just about how feasible everything is. It has to be done in a feasible way. And this should be the target of everything. We, all producers, would be the happiest if we achieve 90% recycling rate, because first, as a winery, we work with nature, we want clean nature, we don't want any pollution, anything, this is the clearest. But all this information, because we work only with distributors, I can tell you, all the major distributors in Bucharest don't have any idea about this. They're not being informed, and I think here is a big point where it needs to be done, because we are small, but others move millions of bottles, and they don't know about this. So I think that all together we have the same target, we just speak in different languages. So, yes.
And we need to make that language speak to the product value for every market. I mean, every market will have a different dynamic of product value. It's just the way it is. And that value will change from household consumption to HoReCa consumption. And hopefully that's also why it's important to have you here to then spread the word to your colleagues in your network, and hopefully a Close the Glass Loop action plan in Romania will also help to do that. Are there any other questions or comments on some of the... Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I will pick up on spread the word, you know. And I saw and followed the extensive presentation of Sorin, and then I have a question for him. I saw one of the projects that you have presented in the board on Expra, which was called the Holy Grail 2.0. And maybe if you can explain this project, maybe we can clear the skies for everything, you know?
Thank you for this challenge. Unfortunately, I don't have all the information to actually explain the entire project. I have not personally been involved in that. I'm sorry, but I can help you with subsequent information.
We will stick with Holy Grail 1.0, okay, yeah. With the standard one.
Okay, so you want to, yeah, please go ahead and briefly introduce yourself.
Just to see if I got it right, because I'm going back a little bit to the presentations and a little bit far away from the DRS system. So in one side we saw that the collection system is not that effective, and the data that Roxana presented, it's very, very clear. If I'm putting glass in the market, I'm not on the DRS scope, I'm still under the EPR system. If the system is not working, how can I meet the targets? And how come, because my success in the market, I'll have a huge impair by the cost that I have, because I'm putting a package in the market that I cannot have a system that is collecting and bringing back the credits from this packaging that I'm introducing. And so in a major portion of the people who is putting glass in the market is going to be quite happy because it has a self-sustaining system with incentives that has a lot of people working on. But if you are in other kind of business that you are putting jars non-DRS, you might have an issue and you might face a huge increase in cost because you cannot justify or you cannot get the credits back because the recycling system for this kind of, this flow of materials is not working. And so, and the second point is, is more about a comment because it's, we are talking about Eureka, we are talking about big supermarkets and so on. I always wondering this 24/7 that we have in the street, you know, very small, where the merchandising is crawling on top of this guy. I was just wondering, the guy will be very happy to have a Mega Image nearby to be able to deposit the packaging because otherwise it's going to be incredibly hard for him to manage all this packaging because they sell a lot of beverages. But this is just a comment. And the first one is more like a question because I was wondering after both interventions.
Yeah. And if I may, because I would not like to leave a question unanswered, the Holy Grail is about pioneering digital watermarks, which are going to be, the initiative is to prove the viability of digital watermarking that would help with sorting installations. Thus, more packaging is going to be sorted rather than becoming a waste. So it's about digital watermarking.
So
yeah, for plastic, yeah.
Maybe a comment then on this question of cost and return on investment. So is that the future for this remaining fraction of glass that's not in the DRS? Is the future higher cost and low return on investment?
Hard question.
Hard answer, to be honest.
Now, we should stick to the idea that municipal waste should be treated by municipalities with same responsibility no matter type of package, type of material. They receive money for this and they should be able to track down and build a separate collection system that can handle not only the remaining glass, but the remaining plastic and other materials. We speak of a huge portion of packages that will remain in the municipal system, 75%. If we are on the idea that DRS is the holy grail and can solve everything, it's a big mistake. So we need to put the same focus or bigger focus on how to determine the municipal system to be performant, because they have the financing. They receive the money from the industry to make the collection and recycling. And this money should be wisely spent on getting non-DRS glass, getting non-DRS PET and plastic. If this would be done, no one can say no. But that's the way. We don't have other way to meet the targets of non-DRS packaging. There is no magical tool to solve it.
Yes, so to answer Emmanuel's question, Holy Grail is not the DRS system. Yeah. No, anyway, that's a silly side joke. Okay, I think we're going to have to wrap up because I think you're hungry and it's fair. Just a couple of comments just to conclude on this morning session and maybe to already think about the action plan afternoon session. So what I'm getting is, number one, we have to make the DRS system as effective as possible because it's covering 90% of the glass packaging placed on the market in Romania. So that's clear. There is a bit of a mismatch between the share of glass packaging in DRS versus the share of glass packaging outside DRS. I don't know if this same mismatch is true for the other materials. So is there a much greater mismatch for glass than for the other materials, which means that the remaining portion of glass is much lower than the remaining portion of other materials outside of DRS, I have a feeling it might be the case. That for that remaining material, glass is going to suffer a lot more than the other materials because the other materials will have a lot more tonnage outside of the scope of DRS. Which then comes to the second point for the action plan. It's how do we create value for that material that's outside of the scope of DRS? How are we going to do that? How are we going to work with municipalities on that? And the third part of the action plan clearly is also then focusing on the HoReCa channel to come back to the comment of you, sir, on the other side, to think about the frequency of collection and how do we deal with that? Who's responsible for it? How can we make it as practical as possible for all products in HoReCa? These are just some 3 thoughts, not to mention consumer communications. Please.
Excuse me. I've just thought of something that we should also consider. We are expecting municipalities to do everything because they get the money. The numbers that I've shared with you, with the budget the districts are allocating for sanitation activities, roughly they represent 10% of their budget, their whole budget. So the budgets that are available at municipalities cannot cover everything that we need in a city. That's a fact. Well, the discussion if several investments have been done throughout the years and we wouldn't have been here, it's a valid conversation. But for real, the numbers that we are seeing is that the budget of the municipality cannot cover too much, realistically.
Oksana, you get 10% of the budget because you brought 10% of the quantities. Simple, mathematics.
No, I'm talking about the money, the budget, the municipality, the authority is putting in their budget in order to cover the costs.
The cost for collecting recycled materials is supported by producers. It's no public money, it's no consumer's money, okay? But it's a fact that you manage to handle only 10% of the recycled materials, so that's why you get from us 10% of the money. If the quantities would increase, then you will get a bigger portion of money.
Yeah, it's just a similarity. We are only getting 10% of the municipality waste, so we get 10% from you. But I'm talking about the whole budget of the municipality that comes from the government.
I see, sorry. Mm-hmm.
This is the money.
I cannot control that money.
Exactly. So it's quite a big portion, I'm saying, from the money that comes from the government in the total cost of a local municipality, roughly 10%. There are some with 7, others with 12, whatever. But it's a big portion of the money that the municipality gets from the government and is paying for sanitation. So there isn't too much room left within the budget of the city, for districts in our cases, to invest in infrastructure altogether and solve the issue this year. And this is why they went for the European projects, to get the money to get to the investment. Just keep that in mind, please. Thanks.
And that will not make our life easier for our remaining material that's outside of DRS. But I propose that we then discuss some of the answers to all of these problems in the afternoon session. I think we'll give you a good hour. I think we can reconvene at 2:30.
45 minutes.
That's a bit harsh, no? I mean, it's going to take 15 minutes anyway to get people into the room, but maybe we can start getting people into the room at 45 minutes from now. But and the lunch, I think, is served just outside here, okay? So at the latest 2:30, back in the room, all right? Thank you.